Renovation meeting for August 8th. Sorry, we're a couple minutes late. We've got a pretty big agenda, so I'm going to go ahead and let Ms. Clear take it away. She's got an update on the parks for us.
Okay, yeah, I just asked to have a small snippet in the beginning because I wasn't sure how long some of the other discussions were going to go, and I wanted to make sure that I did have time to address this committee with regard to Wise Park. I have another handout, but you could take one and pass it around. The Wise Park renovation is beginning imminently within the next week or two. They were out marking the ground for excavation, and that project is being managed by the CIC with the Jewish Federation of Cincinnati. Thank you. There is a sign or a poster in the lobby of the administrative building, and there will also be a sign on the construction site. I'm not sure which camera would be best, but just for you guys to see it, it looks very similar to this. It'll look very similar to this. This is not the final, but that is what it will look like. And that will go on at the construction site. The reason this is not the final is because it is missing a donor logo, and that is important. So we will reprint. But I just wanted to bring that up. And one of the questions that the committee had, so just to get this out there, the rededication ceremony is planned for Sunday, September the 4th at 2 p.m. And I know that is Labor Day weekend. And I know that is WEBN Fireworks Day, but that is the day that worked out best for the Jewish Federation and their VIPs and our dignitaries and things like that. So hopefully it will not take too long and we can all get to the fireworks if that is what we want to do later on that day. But it will be open to the public, and I just wanted to make that announcement because that is going to happen before this committee or even council meets again. So I wanted to make sure I got that out there. I don't know if this really belongs in this committee or the Budget and Finance Committee, but the donors have, at least via the Jewish Federation, they have expressed interest in the plan for ongoing upkeep and maintenance of this park after they are giving us a gift of basically $28,000. How are we going to be taking care of it? They want to know what the plan will be for that. So I don't know if that's this committee or the Budget and Finance Committee, but I just needed to get that out as well.
Yeah, Ms. Clear?
Yes.
There is legislation that the Public Works is supposed to take care of that property. Is that what you're referring to then?
Yes, I am unfamiliar with, whatever has been either budgeted or staffed or any of that. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Do you know what year that legislation's in?
No, I'd have to look it up again.
Okay.
It was pretty old.
You're good. If you find it, would you mind sending it just in case we need to change it if we're going to change who's staffing it or whatever? Yeah. But if you can't find it, I'll see if...
I'll get my hands on it. It's
no worries. Thanks for
just
mentioning
not
that,
that easy.
I'm
And you
confused.
want to change it?
What are you looking for?
The legislation that states that the city is responsible for maintaining the Wise Park, where we did it all along. We didn't know the city was supposed to be doing it.
But, I mean, it's city property. It's kind of understood, isn't it?
Yeah, understood.
Yeah.
That. And I mean, if we're
Do you
getting...
need legislation for that?
Don't need legislation for that, no. What she's referring to is the plants that are going to be put in there.
Yeah.
And the water.
They'll need
I
maintenance.
spoke to them today, and
Yeah.
they were talking about the amount of water that would be needed for the ongoing maintenance of the park.
And I mean, if we're just basically getting a donation, to the city for it, wouldn't it just basically still be the city taking care of it anyway? Just...
The donation is to refurbish and renovate the park.
Right.
And put the new things in. Ongoing maintenance and upkeep
Will be...
watering, making sure it gets done, making sure the perennials are overwintered properly.
Right.
That kind of thing would be our responsibility to manage.
Okay.
I have a follow-up question. So
Yeah.
if you're talking that type of maintenance, is someone from, I'll assume, a landscaper meeting with our Public Works and putting that type of stuff in writing? Because
We-
perhaps our Public Works isn't familiar with the particular
Right.
plants that are going in, and they wouldn't necessarily know what to do to winterize for a particular
Yeah, and
perennial.
I can certainly get that arranged.
Yeah, I know that there's somebody taking care of our plants at the city center. Could that be something they could also take on maybe too?
I don't know. Again, it depends on budget. It depends on,
Right,
you know,
right.
whose umbrella this responsibility falls under. You know what I mean? For
Right.
just the day-to-day maintenance.
The point that Annalise is
Yeah.
making, though, is that there needs to be, she's just saying that in 2023.
There needs to be
there
something
should
added
be
to the
funding
budget.
in the-
Right.
In the
Mhm.
budget for.
Would you mind
ongoing
speaking into the microphone? I know that they're kind of not very sensitive.
Point- Yes, the point that Annalise is making is that in 2023, there needs to be a certain amount allocated in the budget to ensure that we have ongoing maintenance for Wise Park.
Thank you.
To be clear, do we have enough money in the budget for 2022 to make that happen? Because the plants are going to need watered as soon as they get in the ground.
Right.
Well, clearly what will happen, at least right now, the first thing they're going to do is plant it. We will probably be working with other departments right now to make sure that they will be watered through the rest of the year. But as far as, like I said, for the future outgoing, because obviously we're coming into winter.
Right.
So after it's done, we don't really have that many more months. So we will water them throughout the end of the year. But when we start talking about next year and springtime and that kind of thing,
And further
need,
into the
budget for- yeah, we'll need
years and
budget.
years and gotcha.
Mr. Mosby, do we still have the equipment that has that big tank on the back where they would water the flowers throughout the city?
I believe so. I'd have to go back in the garage and make sure to check. But right now, I know that some of the watering is being done by Public Works, as Ms. Anderson said. But that was really more the plants that are local in front of the city center, and that's usually done by bucket. And so,
Okay.
but I know that the amount, like we were talking about, the amount of water that's going to be needed to clean, power wash the wall, and then the amount of water, because, for example, I know that the fire department came out today to water the plants, because those will obviously be needed to be watered, as you said, Ms. Zorb, during even the reconstruction time. So we do have that's why I said we have kind of a temporary plan throughout the end of the year, but this is more scheduled for long term.
I'm sorry, did you say the fire department watered the
Yes.
plants today?
Yes.
Thanks.
That's called teamwork right there.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that was the most urgent thing that I really needed because it was time sensitive, and I wanted to make sure that we had time in the agenda to discuss that topic, so we can move on to the next bullet.
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Mhm.
No, this is awesome. Whoever made this, kudos to you. It looks great. So, thank you. All right. So, Mr. Dieters was supposed to be here tonight. I'm not quite sure where he is. He's a busy man, so. But he did tell me, so, because I wasn't quite sure, but I know that we talked about possibly doing a task force for code enforcement issues, because there's a lot more than, something in this short meeting that we could handle. And he said nothing really special, fancy, legal needs to happen to start a task force. We just kind of do it. He did give me some advice on how he would suggest to do it, who he would suggest to have on it, and all that kind of stuff. That's the only thing I had to add, just really quickly. But if you guys want to take it away, we'll say they can't hear you unless you talk in the mic.
Yeah, I'm going to move.
Are you on code enforcement?
Yeah. Was that not the next thing on the
Thank you, Ms.
agenda?
It
Clear.
was, but it sounded like you went to fireworks, that's why I was confused.
Nope, code enforcement.
All right.
No, you're fine.
On this front, I think I just wanted to bring you guys up to speed. I know we're kind of 6 to 7 months in on a new code enforcement plan. For those of you that haven't met Doug Eikens behind me, he has assumed the role of our property code enforcement officer. And then back in April, we brought on a new piece of software called GovPilot. I don't believe, well, Ms. Blythe, I believe, you've been filing, I've seen you put in a report of concerns, so you figured out how to do it on the website, correct?
The problem was the last time that last 2 times that I tried to report a concern, I put it in on this website, but I never got a confirmation. So the last one that I did in the morning, somebody was parking in their backyard. It didn't confirm, so I ended up calling the police department.
Okay.
And they took the call, but I've been using this system like at least 3 to 4 years, so I don't know why all of a sudden it wasn't acting right.
So what had happened was, I guess when you picked a zoning concern or whatever for the thing, it forwarded to the police department. I hadn't got Jenny Hay as far as up to speed on the program. I had the training with her today because I saw that come across. So depending on what you pick as a disposition for the problem, it routes it to the appropriate department. So far, Doug and Public Works are the only 2, and myself are the only 3 that field them. So I saw it was in the wrong category. It was still sitting there open. So long story short, we, as a code enforcement department, we're required to keep records. When I took it over, I realized we were still operating on spreadsheets and Post-it notes, and there was no way to track and have accountability of what kind of work was being done, where the violations were in progress. There was stuff in the court side of things, stuff on a spreadsheet from years ago. I had no idea what was out there. So we needed a new piece of software. Another problem was that the piece of software you were used to was a one-way transaction. You submitted a report through the website and it came to an email and that was it. There was no way for us to get back to you without opening up an email and going back and forth. This thing, you can track it as it's being moved through process. So, and any comments he adds, actually, the feedback as he's going through, you'll know if there's a violation and all that already put in. The other thing is that there's multiple people seeing the same thing. As they go to enter it, it should prompt them to say this violation's already been entered, as long as the parcel is the same. So it reduces the duplicate calls for the same problem. Obviously, we're fairly new to it. Public Works has had some turnover, so give us a few more months, but it is working. We're getting a lot of compliance. I'm going to say on the second page, you kind of alluded to some of the problems we have. Basically, how are we going to process non-compliance? Right now, we make non-compliant properties and building owners, I guess essentially criminals. They can be charged with a third-degree misdemeanor, and it's subject to jail time and massive fines. Talked to our local mayor's court prosecutor, and he basically said, unless it's going to burn down, blow up, or kill somebody, I don't want to see that in my criminal court. These are civil matters. So we have some conflicting laws, and that's kind of my ask for this committee. There's a lot of things that are conflicting. We actually voided the fee schedule that was in there. We've been charging, as you guys know, through the monthly assessments for grass cutting, $150 admin fee on top of the contractor's fee. I can't find anywhere in our legislation that sets that up. So we need to, there's a lot that needs to be looked at. I won't get too deep into it. This is stuff for the task force. But I also want to kind of walk you through the process that Doug goes through. Yes.
Can I back you up for a quick second? You said the prosecutor wants it handled through?
He says his court is a criminal court. Unless, like I said, it's going to kill somebody, burn down, blow up, something that needs to rise to that level. He does not want to see property code stuff. And I don't want to send, somebody who's
I'm not
garbage
questioning. I'm
cans
just trying to get it in the minutes.
Yes, that's it, yeah. So I don't want to make them criminals. And the idea is to get compliance. But there are, people want to comply, most of them. There are a few that want to challenge us and all that. You guys know that are going to be hard heads. But there's some definite loopholes here. There's some things with overtime parking and handicap placarding. You guys are familiar with Goodman next to the school property. There's 5 cars there with flat tires and it's sitting there for years. He gets by with that because he has a handicap placard. So I've been working with Chief Schrand, trying to kind of shore up that, those ordinances. So that's all, I want to bring all this stuff up in committee, but before we go any further, I want to kind of walk you through what Doug does. And what we get a lot, and probably 90% of our compliance. The next third page is this violation notice. It's basically a door hanger. So Doug, through sometimes verbal contact or hanging one of these door hangers on a person's door, usually gets compliance. This is the trash cans, the high grass, that kind of stuff. And he's been tracking all these interactions with residents in that Gov pilot program. If it escalates beyond that, on the last page, you kind of see a copy of the violation notice that goes out via certified mail, served in person, et cetera, any of the legal means we have. But this is kind of the process we've been working through thus far. And you guys have kind of seen the results coming through the assessments on a monthly basis. So I won't take up any more time. You guys have any questions about code enforcement? How to get to it, how to enter complaints. There's also an app called GovAlert. You guys can put on your phone, Android or Apple.
Yeah, we, unfortunately, we currently have a violation on Lois of trash cans from the same neighbor. I'm backing out the driveway today and the cans are out. But do you have, what is the code? If I put parking in grass on the website, will a code, parking in yard, will a code come up for that? Parking, illegal
It should route to
parking?
the police. It's a zoning violation. Am I not mistaken? And parking falls under, you
Parking
guys
in
got
yard.
one car for us already that was in the front line.
So technically, it falls under, and there's an ordinance called non-asphaltic surface, and it makes it an actual, it makes it a misdemeanor, where it's
Okay.
actually an arrestable offense that needs to be summoned to court for parking on the grass.
So parking, sorry, just to make
Parking
this
on
clear,
grass.
parking violations are police, like all of them?
So that's kind of why when we talked about it, we wanted to set up that, and hopefully everybody can hear me, I'm sorry, there's a.
Yeah.
You're good. If you want to take one of those seats, not, it's a lot of pressure.
I'll talk as loud as I can.
You're good.
Aim your mic that way.
Here, well, do you just want to stand up at the podium? Because we
there
can
we
all
go.
hear you, but it's the people at home.
Yeah, there's a lot of
The mics are weird.
overlap in our
that
areas
better?
of responsibility. That's
So,
for sure.
so there is a lot of overlap.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot of room for cleaning things up because of the way things have been done in the past and how much reorganization we've done over the years. And I think what we're all excited about is getting together and tackling that project together so that we're all happy. Fire department, code enforcement, police department, council, putting all of those things together and making sure they're in the right places. Because right now, currently, just a perfect example is we were talking about the vehicles, abandoned vehicles parked on the street. Currently, there's actually no ordinance for abandoned vehicles. It's overtime parking. And it's listed as overtime parking. So the problem is overtime parking, I have to go out and I have to mark tires. And part of that overtime parking also says that if they have a handicap placard, I can't cite them or do anything at all. And so it comes down to when those laws were written and kind of the spirit of when they were written way back when North College Hill was a, single family homes and people only had one car to a family. I'm sorry, but when I go around in North College Hill, I would be very shocked to see too many houses that only have one car per household. Right? So parking is a premium that way. And I think that we could move there's an abandoned vehicle section, but the abandoned vehicle section is actually under zoning and clearly says in the charter that police department, fire department, code enforcement can't enforce that. Only the zoning official can. But there's no way for him to cite or do anything under those zoning rules. So there's just those things like that I believe, if I'm not speaking out of turn, that we talked about in depth in a meeting and said there's a lot. We have a whole list of those things that we want to get in front of the task force and try to clean up so that it'll better enable all of our departments to honestly serve a better product for North College Hill.
So not only do like us 1, 2, 3, 4 all need to work together, but also zoning then. So do we need to talk to somebody from zoning to see if we can get their rules kind of changed too and make it, or are you saying that that's something that zoning should be taking care of just differently? Or
I'll be honest, in my opinion, it can stay over there in zoning,
Okay.
but we should probably have one in our ordinances
separate-
list and,
okay.
and in taken from our charter and listed in our
Gotcha.
our ordinances that enable the police department to better act on that behalf and not hide it in zoning with no
Right.
no
With-
way to actually
to
cite or
enforce
to
it.
take care of it.
Right.
Exactly, enforce it. Yes.
So
And there's a lot of little ones like that we could probably clean up that I think I just think they were overlooked over time, put in zoning or put in other places where I think it can be reorganized to better serve all of the departments involved.
right. So what needs to be done is ordinances need to be added, changed, taken out, whatever. And together, we kind of need to figure out what that looks like. So hence a task force that would then come back to this committee or rules and public policy. I don't care which one. It was just easier for them to come and talk about it here because they were already going to be here for fire. But then would come back to council and kind of suggest, hey, these are what we think you guys should change and how we think you guys should change them to make their jobs easier. So, given that, anybody want to join a task force? All right. And I also would like to be on it, obviously.
Well, that was my question.
Yeah.
Has this task force already been created, and how large is this task force?
No, so that was something I talked to Bill about. So Bill suggested obviously have Fell, Strand, and Eichner on there, and then I mean we're gonna have to talk to Bill about some of this too. He doesn't need to be on the task force, but obviously we'll need to request ordinances and whatever from him. And then Bill suggested 2 people from council. We don't want to have any more than 4, obviously. And he said if you get 3, you might as well just work on it in a committee. So I think 2 would sound reasonable. And then he suggested getting somebody outside. I think that's fine. We can. The only thing is I don't know if that would really be beneficial because the whole point of doing this is so that council, zoning, fire, and police can all be on the same page, and so that we can realistically get things done. And, instead of having council make these arbitrary rules and nobody able to enforce them because they don't have the means to, it makes more sense if everybody works together and then we come up with realistic laws and ordinances. So to me, it doesn't feel like we need a citizen unless there's somebody out there who really wants to come and sit in. So yeah, to me it feels like maybe like 2 people from council and then of course these fine guys here.
What do we need to create it?
Bill said nothing. You just say, I declare a task force.
I do declare.
I do declare.
Miss Anderson.
Yeah.
If willing, my recommendation would just be to look at it and maybe invite Scott Ritter. I know Scott Ritter has been our prosecutor for the mayor's court for at least the last 17, 18 years. And I think it would be beneficial. I know he lives in North College Hill.
Yeah.
He cares about North College Hill. And I think that would do probably Chief Fells and I and Doug Eikens a great service, because if we're going to change and we're going to try to organize the ordinances to be more usable, I think it would be nice to have his input on the back end to make sure that it works for everybody, including him, and we can prosecute those in court.
I think that sounds great. Thank you so much for that recommendation. So, Mary Jo, you said you would like to?
Yes.
Okay. So legally we can have 1 more person on council if anybody really wants to do it. I'm not pressuring anybody to. I'm not saying anybody has to. I'm saying if anybody really wants to, they can. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think 6 is a good number. But I also wanted to talk about this in this committee so that people knew kind of what was going on. So that way in a month, 2, 3, whatever, when we come back to council and say, hey, here are our suggestions, people aren't like, wait, what? So if everybody's content with that, anything else? No? All right. Wow. I feel really accomplished. Good job, guys. Thank you. Thank you guys so much for all of that and for printing this out. This is helpful. All right. Next up, firework legislation. So sort of kind of same thing, same sort of sentiment as what we were just talking about. It doesn't really make sense for council to make laws and to expect things to be enforced that are unenforceable. So I wanted to invite you guys here so that way we can have your input as to what would be safe and your input as to what would be legitimately enforceable. Because I don't want to put any extra pressure on you guys, and I know that especially if you're getting a call for something like fireworks, sometimes there's alcohol or drugs or children involved, so you don't always want to take a call if it's unnecessary, if it could cause further injury. So
Yeah, well,
But in front of everybody
I'll let you take this one.
is
This mostly falls in your wheelhouse.
You big chicken.
Enforcement.
it's a copy of our current firework legislation.
That seems to be the issue.
And then the last 2 pages are the Ohio, how they changed theirs. And sorry, Chief Fellows, you're not getting out of this because I wanted to hear from you first. So what would you suggest from a safety standpoint before we even talk about anything that's enforceable or not enforceable or what we currently have?
Well-
What would you suggest from a safety standpoint?
Well, I'm data-driven kind of person. You guys know that. So I think when you hit me up to be here today, you asked me to pull some data.
Yep.
I look back the last 3 years, and there's not a single firework-related injury that I can recall or fire that happened in North College Hill. That's going back 3 years.
Wow.
I've been here 22 years, and the only one I remember is caused by a sparkler, and with a kid in the eyeball.
That guy in Mount Healthy got hurt.
Got him unhealthy.
The guy in Mount Healthy got hurt, and there was a guy on Waltham that blew his hand apart, and it was on
Okay.
years and years back.
Years and years back.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it definitely happens.
Yeah, I was going over to
but-
Doug, but I'm glad you remember that. So that being said, you know, it's one of those things, what's enforceable? I know people, it's real easy to drive over to Indiana to get whatever fireworks you want and shoot them
Right.
off. We don't carry guns and, you know, all that fancy stuff, so the fire department's not going to be out cuffing people and trying to enforce it.
Right.
From a safety standpoint, I'd be more concerned, and this kind of goes over into the police department, it's the criminal damaging. If you're seeing how tight in CH is, you have the possibility that, you know, the ashes to land, or the embers to land on somebody's car, burn their paint. And driving through here on July the 5th, there was garbage everywhere. That seems to be the bigger problem.
Exactly.
And setting off fireworks in the public space and public property is already illegal, and it's still illegal. So it just, you know, with, like I told you, I think in the email, the problem is when you asked me to pull the data from the 4th of July, day before, day after, around the evening hours, these guys and us are bombarded with crimes related to alcohol, drugs,
Right.
fights, etc. And so we're already tied up because of the party atmosphere that's going on around the 4th of July. So our ability as a small, municipality to scale up, to go out and start hammering people that are setting off fireworks in the street is very, very limited.
Right.
So this is kind of where like Chief Schran comes in. It's like we have the discretion to enforce it when it gets really, really bad. And there's already laws that cover criminal damaging, arson, et cetera. If you set somebody's house on fire, with a firework, there's plenty of other catch-alls to get that. So with Ohio, I think maybe Ohio realized they weren't stopping it, and it just, if you can't beat them, join them.
Right.
And decided to join Indiana and Kentucky with allowing the 1.4 G fireworks. So I don't know how we go about enforcing anything other than going with the Ohio law and then using discretion to enforce the other laws if it becomes, problematic. Like I said, if you're damaging people's property, et cetera, et cetera. But I mean, just the littering alone, you could violate, 50 people just in littering.
Right.
What I saw the following morning, it was ridiculous. So and I also work at a city in Cincinnati, and it's mayhem there. There's streets you can't even drive down. There's so many cakes and things in the street.
Right.
So I don't know.
Yeah. Chief Schran, what you got to add?
I mean, my personal feeling, I've been at all of the different runs over the years, and I've seen it. My personal feelings, I'm not a big fan of the fireworks,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I never have been. But that's where it's also difficult for me, because I also have to try to enforce the laws with the resources we have. And right now, we're kind of limited. And as Chief Fells also told you, that's the nature of the business, because 4th of July weekend that's so busy, it is also accompanied by all the barbecues, all the drinking, all of the other things. I worked Saturday and Sunday personally so that we didn't have to order one other person in on overtime. And I could keep track of the new hires that we had, because that was some of their first weekends on.
Oh, geez.
And I can tell you, we ran pretty much from call to call to call, from fights with people with guns at the Hair Palace to a four-wheeler that flipped because somebody being drunk on the street and had to be sent down to University Hospital in an emergency, to all of the other things that went on.
Right.
Right. And that's the problem that we have, is trying to enforce it when there's so many other things going on with it. And that's the problem, is saying, I don't necessarily disagree with the ordinance that we have. The problem is going
Right.
to be able to enforce it and enforce it throughout there. And so my letter that I put out was not to say that I'm allowing it openly and blanketly. My intent instead was more along the lines of, this is what we're not going to tolerate, because over the years, right, we had, in 2021, we had families that just decided they were going to go over to the park off of Betts, and they left a giant mess.
Yeah.
And my thought process was this: after everybody's worked so hard to get almost $200,000 worth of grant money and donations to make the splash park, and as a city and as a group, we're all moving forward, that was one of my main priorities.
Right.
And when I see people posting on social media pages that I've got thousands and thousands
yeah.
of dollars of fireworks and big things that I'm going to let off, and everybody, it's a free-for-all and have a big party, I kind of felt the need to quickly shut that down, right? Over the years, we've also had the superintendent of the schools complaining because you had hundreds of people who decided to go to the old Becker Park and kind of take over the Becker Park and be a free-for-all, and he can't have that either with his
Right.
insurance, because he'd be liable for that. I know not this year, but last year, we had folks that were shooting bottle rockets and Roman candles at the cameras and at the windows of the school building.
Oh my gosh.
That we had to charge with disorderly conduct and get them out of there. So again, my point was, in the letter I put out, was trying to react to those things, to kind of tell the community, I'm not saying I allow it at all, but what I am saying is, if you do these things that are so blatantly obvious that you're going to destroy the schools, city property, and those things, you're going to shut down roads and all the things that we've had, right? We are going to take enforcement action on that right away. And that's a busy weekend for us, so that I was just trying to set the expectations, if you would.
Yeah, I appreciate that sentiment. I personally didn't appreciate, saying that, we're just not going to enforce this, because it is still an ordinance, to this day in our city. So, maybe it could have been worded better, maybe I read it wrong, but either way, at this point, it doesn't really matter. At this point, the only thing we can really do is now either change or
And
update
then
or
I'm
keep
sorry for
whatever.
that, because that was my intent, and my intent was
Yeah.
obviously to put that out very quickly in response to the other things that I was getting inundated with
Right.
calls about. What are we doing for this?
Well,
right?
I really
And-
appreciate
and to shut that
apology.
down, and to, honestly, and that's kind of why I set the priorities that way.
Right.
That being said, I guess it goes on to what we're looking at for the future. And I guess my 2 cents as the police chief would be this: whatever that council decides as far as an ordinance go, right? Please just keep that in mind. With the limited resources, I don't know that we're ever going to be able to arrest our way out of this problem.
Agreed.
Oh,
Okay?
yeah.
I look at it from this standpoint of, we have 9,000 to 10,000 residents. On a good day, I have 17 officers. And so what that means to me is, generally speaking, the community-oriented policing portion of that means that we should be trying to do everything by voluntary compliance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And the problem is we've had the ordinance for years that says no fireworks whatsoever, and we haven't gotten that voluntary compliance. And I don't know that we're gonna ever be
Yeah,
able
I
to
don't think
get
we ever
that.
will.
Right.
But I
no.
also don't know that we're ever going to be able to have a big enough stick, if you would, to arrest our way out of that problem.
Right.
And that's about as honest as I can be with that.
No, I really
Is
appreciate that.
saying, I appreciate it. My personal feeling is, yeah, fireworks are dangerous, especially coupled with alcohol and all the things that I've seen, right? You compound that when you do it in the middle of the street, you do it on other people's property, and we have all the other things that we have.
Right.
And I have no problem enforcing those things and doing what we need to do to protect the city. The problem is without the voluntary compliance of most of our citizens, I fear that the police department is fighting that losing battle.
Right.
And that's all I can ask, is that when we're looking at legislation that way, to kind of keep some of that in mind as well.
Yeah.
Madam Chair.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
I think the approach, I won't really speak on the letter, like, it just is what it is, but I think the approach mentally is where we should be for the progression of our city. I mean, where do you go? Like, I don't care what neighborhood you go in, Wyoming,
Oh, yeah.
Mason,
Indian Hill.
they have the same battle. Our battle, biggest battle in our city, is the debris that's left. I will tell you, on my street, we had 2 huge offenders. I mean, they're both, I'll leave it at that. But, but what we decided to do for some of us is, like, when they were wrapping up, we just said, we brought our garbage cans out, our brooms for our yards. Hey, come, get your kids, help pick this up. And you can drive down on our street, which used to be very littered after the 4th of July with it. And some of us as a community on our street just decided we're going to help them treat our street well.
Right.
I don't know, everyone can't do that, but that was what we did on our street to kind of
Yeah, and I mean,
get the mindset of, if you're going to do it, clean it up. Personally, I hate it because my dogs go crazy, right? They hate it. My dog is afraid of thunder. He's a giant scaredy cat, you know, but the fireworks, he's almost on top of my head.
right.
So I get the offense with it, you know, but at the end of the day, he lives in a neighborhood too. He's got to cooperate with neighbors, you know, so
Right.
it is what it is.
Well, and I wonder too if one of the cleanup days could intentionally be put, you know, a couple days after 4th of July or something to try to combat that too as a community. But I do appreciate what you said about your statement that you guys had put out, and I appreciate you guys coming here and just working with us in general. But okay, so with what you guys said, my next question, is there anything in the new Ohio law that you guys would say, oh no, we need to, you know, we would need to add this on top of it, or we would need, you know, an ordinance that would say this in addition, or something like that?
I looked over pretty heavily. No, not really. There's some catch-alls here, but there's also catch-alls inside of our existing ordinances that he could enforce and hang
Right.
people up with, as far as like criminal damaging and things like that. You know, if you're
And public
set-
intoxication and trespassing and
I mean, like I said, the old arson thing and things like they were shooting at somebody's house. There's all those little catch-alls that you could be charged with for irresponsible discharge of fireworks, in
Right.
addition to what's here. No, I just, I don't know. My recommendation would be to kind of adopt this as it is in the
As
state.
is.
I don't think it doesn't hamstring me at all. I don't know, do you see anything there that hamstrings your department? I just feel like there's,
No, I mean, the
Discretion
one
there
thing that the state did that I actually like is to put hard and fast timeframes on it.
Yeah.
Which I do like the timeframes, and I do appreciate the timeframes. And so that would be the only thing that I would caution, is that if we were going to allow it and to see how that works out, to put the timeframes on it as well.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, I guess I'm falling somewhere in the middle, saying I do understand, and we're not going to be able to wrest our way out of it, but at the same time, there's a lot of other folks like us that don't appreciate it, you know, like some of the others partying all the time, and there needs to be a cutoff. I don't think it's reasonable to go out at all hours of the day and night.
Do you think that the cutoff that they have is okay? Or would you want us to make it stricter? Or not stricter, but earlier or later or anything like that?
it's hard knowing when it gets dark. Yeah.
New Year's Eve and
Yeah.
New Year's Day, I don't think there's really much. I mean, 1 a.m. I think is I still think it's too much, being personally, but
Okay.
I kind of understand it. I mean,
Right.
I would kind of shoot more for a 12:30,
Okay.
right? But
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
Is that New
you
Year's
know,
Eve?
we
We're
could,
talking
we
about 2
could
days
pick
back to
these
back.
times apart and no one's
thought that
gonna
was
listen
rolling
to
over.
them, ever.
Okay.
I'm sorry, one second.
Okay.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we could pick these times apart and no one's gonna listen to them ever.
Oh, yeah.
So-
Especially because I feel like when they're going to Google it, the first thing they're going to see is Ohio, whatever, and they're going to be like, oh, I can go till 1 a.m.
Yeah,
Right.
Madam Chair. I
Yeah.
also think on New Year's Day, even that's the day you said, I just hope it's fireworks.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, there you have it.
fireworks.
Oh, yeah. I feel like there honestly wouldn't be. Because, I mean, it's so cold outside, nobody wants to go.
Well, and that's part
No,
of
we're
it.
talking.
Oh, what
we're
did
talking
you say?
gunfire.
Arms, I think, is what
Oh.
she was alluding to.
And because
Well,
the-
I mean, we always hope that for every day, but
the Hamilton County Communications Center has been so overwhelmed with these things, they were actually excited with the state's laws that way. Because what would happen so often is people would get frustrated and they'd call up 911 and knowing they were fireworks, call them out as shots fired to think we would get there faster.
oh my
I can't tell you how
gosh.
many shots fired calls we went to on 4th of July
Wow.
weekend, turning out to be fireworks.
Fireworks.
And
Oh my
again,
goodness.
I'm saying these things because those are the things that I want you guys to hear from us that we're dealing with here, and why the letter and the things that way, to keep in mind that we're hoping that, and I think that's somewhat of why the state was looking at that, because we for years have just been inundated in the law enforcement community with the situation of what's going on with fireworks when it comes to those kind of things.
Right.
And my hope would be that, yes, if we did adopt something similar to what the state of Ohio did, that would limit those kind of calls and those things.
Right.
And limit some of the burden that is placed upon us during those busy times.
Is there anybody on the committee who has any issue with anything in the Ohio changes? I mean, yeah, I totally agree with what Chief Tran is saying. I really don't love the fireworks. My dog freaks out. Our neighbor's dogs freaks out. There are veterans, there are people with PTSD. I mean, there are lots of reasons to not like fireworks. But from a standpoint of enforcement and priorities and how we need to prioritize what we're enforcing, I just think that it's more realistic to go with with what Ohio has implemented.
I'd like to thank you all for your transparency.
I
It
agree.
has really given me personally some clarity on, how you all prioritize everything and, the limit. I knew you had limited resources, but it just really puts it out there, and I'd like to thank you all for that.
Thank
for
you.
being, transparent.
So I can, unless I'm still waiting in case anybody wants to jump in, but I can talk to Bill and see how we would go about kind of changing our legislation to either abolish it or adopt Ohio's or however legally that needs to get done. But if this committee is okay for me kind of getting that legislation together, would you guys like to see it at our next committee meeting? Would you guys just like me to take it right to our next council meeting? What would you guys like
If it's just going to mimic the state, I'm okay with it going,
going?
because we've basically seen it.
Right.
Who else? Okay.
Same.
All right.
If
Well,
it's gonna mimic the state, the only thing that I would ask for is we put, and with Bill Dieters, work that in so that we can still, when we cite somebody for that, we can cite them to our mayor's court for that and what schedule that's going to be.
okay.
Because if somebody does violate that and we're citing them, we want to keep that revenue and that stuff coming here to our mayor's court. We don't want to send everything like that downtown.
Can you shoot me an email that has kind of like what you just said? I'm just not sure if I'm gonna be able to reiterate it exactly to Bill how you'd like me to. But okay,
Yes.
cool. Thank you. Okay. All right. Well, I really appreciate you guys coming and your guys' addition to this conversation. I feel like it helps us to know kind of what we should be doing based on what you guys can do. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
All right. All right. Miss Clear, I'll invite you back up here. She's got lots to tell us about our recreation stuff.
With
going
the
on.
permission of the committee, I would like to defer my report and submit it in writing so that we
Yeah.
only have about 13 more minutes left. And I
Yeah.
know the city administrator has some things that he would like to update. So with the permission of the committee, I
Oh
would
my
like
gosh,
to
yeah, of
submit my
course.
report in writing.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Sorry, go ahead, Mr. Mosby, whenever you're ready.
No, I'm just trying to follow your.
Hang on, the next thing is me. Next agenda item.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought Miss Clear was asking that if Mr. Mosby could go, and I was saying yes. But
I didn't realize that someone else was in between.
no, you were totally fine. You're good. Yeah, go ahead, Miss Orb.
So actually, from the Tree City, I have a couple things. I did talk to the mayor to get her input, and we have a Tree City meeting, I think either tomorrow or it's either Wednesday or Thursday this week. I can't remember which one. But there are two other things that I would like to ask of the city administrator. One is the Tree City signs that are in the caucus room. Can we get those put up somewhere? Not somewhere, very specifically. Can we get one put up at on Hamilton Avenue by the Cross County exit ramp going south? Somewhere close in proximity to that North College Hill wall, somewhere close to that. And then the second one, can we have that on Galbraith Road on the east end of the city? And then the third thing, can we set someone up, and I don't know who, set someone up with our Tree City chair, who is Javette, to kind of walk through and pick a spot to hang the Tree City plaque in council chambers? And
Okay, can
I
I
think
ask
that's
you
it.
to back up for a minute?
Yep.
So, I definitely got the Tree City sign, southbound side of Hamilton, toward the entrance. I was a little confused on the second one. You said Galbraith, and then you said east, but are you talking about eastbound, or are you talking about on the east side of Hamilton Avenue?
it says, our minutes say eastbound, but I thought they meant,
Or do you want it on the eastbound side, west of Hamilton Avenue?
Like, are you talking
the
about?
east side of North College Hill.
Okay.
So you want it by the city center?
Yes, but
Heading
towards
west.
the entrance of the city.
So westbound
Yeah.
on the east side of North College Hill.
Yes. I had to drive that in my head, yes.
So- as
let's-
if you're
let's
driving past
let's
the
start
city
with
center.
the pony keg. The pony keg basically is the border.
Yes.
So you want it on the westbound lane, so that when people are coming through,
Yeah.
that they can see it,
Yep.
right? Okay.
Exactly.
All right.
By the
Yes,
city center.
by Bobo Link.
Yeah. Sorry, but I meant like, okay, yeah. Yep, we're on the same page. Cool.
Hold on, and then the last one that you said, you wanted to put the plaque up in the council chambers, is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes. But I don't know who to tell her to meet with.
I'll get
Okay.
Roger.
All right, thank you. I'm good.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
I did want to, though, give you, because I saw that this is on here.
Yeah.
So I will tell you that for 2022, this year, we are going to hold the Christmas tree lighting in the same place that we held
Yeah.
it last year.
Oh, yeah. No worries.
I just wanted to be sure. Now, it doesn't mean.
Uh,
that we'll
Yeah,
do
no,
that
you're
for
good.
next year.
hang on.
Oh, just kidding.
So that's a different direction than we heard from the mayor. The mayor told me she would like a new tree planted, and we used that new tree this year.
She did want a new tree planted, absolutely. I don't think that the new tree that you're talking about, unless you're talking about one that was already
Like that's already grown.
Full grown.
correct. That's why.
Charlie Brown tree.
Right, it will not have grown enough yet for a tree ceremony, which is
Right.
why we're doing that.
Okay? I'm just saying,
So, yes.
that was very different direction than what I just got.
So,
Well, I'll tell you what I will do. I'll talk to her to clarify, but I did speak to her just last week about this, so, but I'll talk to her to clarify.
that sounds like a plan to me. I mean, as long as we can get admin on the same page. All right. On to you, Mr. Mosby. A lot of what I have, really quickly, I'm sorry before you start. A lot of what I have under your report are just things that I know you guys are working on, and I like to steal Miss Underwood's plan of keeping them on there until I see them through. So if you don't have an update on like the LED lights or the street sweeper schedule, don't worry about it, but go ahead.
Comprehensive plan update, we just met last week. They have begun their second stage of the process. They are looking for certain key stakeholders, so we're reaching out to the ones that were given to us to kind of make connections with. So far, we've kind of had some mixed results. Some of them were very excited about being contacted, others not so much. But we're underway in that portion of the process now. I will tell you that just for long-range planning for everybody, just to be aware, we're probably not looking at really what we might call a kind of a final recommendation anywhere before, honestly, July of next year. So I mean, we're still about a year out before we get a final recommendation. At which point, of course, it will be a document that will be put before council. Council will be able to formally adopt it, and then that will be our plan. So anyhow, that's fine. You can keep it on there. I'll certainly give you updates on that.
Madam Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I ask you a question? I thought about the renovation for the other side of the building that we've been discussing for the past couple of months. Has that been brought to the attention of the comprehensive plan team so they can chime in on that issue?
Not yet.
I think that would be something good for them to look into.
My goodness, yeah.
And recommend for us.
Yeah.
Well, they first thing that they're doing is gathering all the feedback that they've received so far. So in an indirect way, that feedback has been already given to them. In other words, they have already said that, and from the feedback they've got, that we don't really have any place for recreation or community activity.
I think what she's asking is, do they know that we're renovating the city
Oh, yeah.
center? Okay, I thought you
been
were
known
saying
that.
they don't know that, and I got
No,
very
no,
worried.
I was
Okay.
just wanted to get suggestions from them as to what what would they do, because they're the
Well, they've already
experts on this.
I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
apologize. They had already, this question was brought up actually earlier on in the process. And I believe Ms. Zorb had inquired about that. And there was some email communication that basically, where the lead on this had basically said, if we had not already been so far into a particular process, these are some of the things that she may have recommended for actually not just the building, the entire space, the whole school area, yeah. But she also made mention of the fact that we were already involved in a process, and so basically what they said was, you might as well just go ahead and continue along with that process. Back then, they knew that we were already looking at trying to do something to renovate that side of the building.
No, what I was looking for from them is, since they're in design and planning, what recommendations they would make. If we did tear down that building and tried to do something, I want recommendations from them because they have that planning view,
Right,
'Cause
but they're
we
not
haven't really
into-
gotten a loan or anything like that. So I just want to see what their recommendations would be, hopefully in the report.
Well, I want to clarify, they're not so much into building design. They're urban design. So what they're doing is looking at the urban layout. That's what they're looking, not so much the specific use of individual buildings. That's why I think that what you're saying, I want to make sure that the distinction is made there.
Yeah, I get it, but
So
it
you're
would be-
saying maybe like what the building could be used for?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just something basic.
Yeah, like
because-
urban
because they're a
planning would go in that.
planning thing, what would they suggest that we do with that property, or what would
Yeah.
go in there, what would benefit us? So that's mainly what I'm talking about, what they're doing now. And it crossed my mind that we should be asking with them since they're, you know, in the process of doing this.
Right.
Madam Chair,
Yeah, go ahead.
Ms. Blythe, I think, I definitely plan to talk to them as well as the economic developer. Before, as a group, we'll talk about, you know, those suggestions from those two places when we get to that point. So I guess I'm saying I agree, and I definitely plan to put those things in place as we go forward with that bullet point. I think Mr. Mosby is saying that they already are aware, and as we progress to a more solid plan for what it will be, those inputs can be shared to the extent in which they can share. Urban planning to that tune of what they can share from that point, and economic development from what they can share from that point. Recommendations, but ultimately decisions will have to be ours.
Yeah,
Is
but
that
definitely, like I said, they're working for us for right now, so
Right.
I would love to have their suggestions before we even get a loan or vote or anything. I mean, we're using them, so I want to hear their opinions before we move forward.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
I appreciate that, yeah.
That's it, thank you.
Really quick, sorry, I just want to give a time update. It is 7:29, but I wanted to give you time if you have anything else.
Only a couple things.
Yeah, go
Just
ahead.
pertaining to the LED lights. No, we haven't received any funding for that. However, I will say there's a little bit of good news. One of the lights, I'm sure that you all have probably noticed that there was a lamp that is completely gone. Unfortunately, there was an accident and knocked it out in front of Buddy Rogers. However, fortunately, I have talked with Duke, and so they are going to replace that lamp and the lighting there. So that is something that we're working on. And let's see, signage, I'll just jump down really quickly here.
You're fine.
Signage for the city entrances, actually, I did go around. We do have signs that are up.
Yeah.
I will say that those signs are not 3x5. They are more, I think they're 24x36. So what I will do is I will look to see how, visible, especially if we're going to put the Tree City sign up there, because I think those Tree City signs are 3x5, if I'm correct. I think they're 3 feet by 5. I mean, they're pretty big signs.
Yeah, they're
Good size.
big.
So if that is the case, perhaps we can keep the 24x36, maybe put it atop that sign. So you have Welcome to North College Hill, then below that you have a Tree City USA sign.
Yeah.
But if a larger one is needed, we can look at that to get larger ones. Let's see. Oh, last thing, because you do have it on here. I am working with Waterworks, so just as a reminder to everyone, when our portion of the project for Hamilton Avenue begins, they will not be doing the road. They will be replacing the water main. That project has not been let yet. That hasn't been put out to bid. But once it does get put out to bid, once they find out who it is, that's when we're going to be able to get the dates as to when it will start. But to be clear on for everyone, the plan will be for them just to replace the water main lines, which means in essence, the maintenance of traffic, just so that you have it conceptually, they will be required to maintain one lane of traffic in both directions. They will be usually replacing about 200 feet of water main a day, which means that it'll probably take about a week, perhaps 2 weeks to get it completed. So that's just, and then after all of that is done, after the replacement, the replacement and repair is done in Mount Healthy, their schedule, our long-range plan is for them to come out beginning in April of 2023.
So April 2022?
23.
Okay, it's April 2023. April 2022 already happened.
Yeah.
For April 2023 for the sewer lines or
No,
for
no.
the,
For
to do the
Water
blacktop?
main will be, right now, I'm just saying, it could be anywhere from November to January.
Gotcha.
They will be finished by March, and then in April is when the street will be replaced.
So have you talked to CIC or Chamber of Commerce at all about
I have.
getting? Okay. Okay. All right. I'll just keep it on there. All right. So I can just give a quick update. The homeowner assistance fund. I talked to Bill Deers. That was one of the other reasons I was really hoping he could make it tonight, but that's okay. He said he is working on the CIC partnership legislation. That was the update he gave me. And I said, do you need anything from me? And he said, maybe. And I haven't heard anything since. So I'll see if he can come to next month's meeting again, or if I can meet with him to get that. But I don't know. We've been sitting on that for a while, so kind of disappointed in that, not having anything for you guys again. But I'm swear I'm bugging him as much as I can. Any new business from anybody? No? All right. I just want to thank everybody for coming tonight. I really appreciate that. I feel like that was a very, very great meeting. I feel like we really got a lot done, and I really appreciate you guys and everybody else for participating and being cooperative. So, all right. I will go ahead and adjourn at 7:34. Do we want to take a 5-minute break for yours? Okay. So we'll come back at 7:40.
Yeah, 7:40.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Miss 16.
Can you all pull up the agenda, please? Or just, I just want to make sure that you're able to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Would you mind sending me a copy of the agenda as a Word document? Or was it already sent as a Word document?
No,
I sent it out as a
PDF.
PDF, but
Would-
I can send it to you as a Word document.
Okay.
Do you need a copy of it?
No, I'm just to take minutes on.
Oh, all right.
Are you cold?
I can't believe it. I got cold.
Mrs. Freeze.
You two.
Make fun of her.
You two are my problem.
Okay. So today is Monday, August 8th, 2022, and it is 7:43, and we are getting ready to have the Budget and Finance meeting. I want to make sure everyone got the documents and you were able to get the minutes. The minutes from our July meeting. Did you have a chance to look over them? If not, can you take a brief look and just make sure that they are acceptable?
Madam Chair, just one minor correction. The Dunley Park is spelled D-U-M.
It is. I knew that. You're right. I'll
What is it?
correct that.
D-U-M?
D-U-M, as in, and then E-L-E.
Gotcha, thank you.
I noticed it during the meeting last July. I just didn't correct it. Sorry. So then I will make that, if Marjorie, I don't know if you're making that correction, but if not, I can make that correction and then have them modified for September.
I can't like make the correction since I shared it with you now. I think it's on you, like
That's
on your
fine.
end.
Sent
Okay.
it-
No, that's
She
fine.
sent it in the email today.
Oh, I see what you're saying on the minutes. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
But no, I didn't make the
Okay,
correction.
so we'll move on. So the first thing on our agenda today is a resolution, the top tax duplicate. I just put that on there to jog my memory as to what it was. I sent the supporting documents for that. And that came from Mr. Mosby. It is titled City of North College Hill Resolution, and it doesn't have actually a resolution number. It's just in yellow highlights. It's a resolution to certify the assessments to the county auditor for placement on the tax duplicate. As I understand it, it's pretty yearly, right?
Especially during the summer months, yes, this is the resolution where, as during the last committee meeting, they were talking about code enforcement. If discrepancies are not resolved by the property owner, and we have to go resolve them, we then charge the property owner. If they do not pay, then we assess it to the tax roll. So that is what this legislation is.
So we just kind of want to filter it through committee before we send it over to our council meetings. It definitely needs to be passed, so.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
question, list of addresses, are those houses abandoned or are they owner occupied or rentals? I'm just trying to understand what the deal is with those properties.
These are, I don't know the exact, I hear what you're saying, I don't know if, which ones are like owner occupied or non-owner occupied. What I can tell you is that these were properties that were identified for discrepancy, high grass, and then it was not corrected by either the tenant or the property owner, so we had to correct it. And then what happens is our code enforcement officer then sends an invoice to the property owner. If the property owner does not pay it, then it comes to council for assessment to the town.
So one of the addresses is actually on my street, and the grass does grow like out of control all the time. I'm not the one calling, by the way.
It doesn't matter, nobody can hear you because you're over there.
But I was just wondering if somebody actually lives there, because I've never seen anybody going in there.
Oh, that, I don't know for sure, but as you pointed out, we had to send someone out to cut it, so hence they're getting charged. And we attempted to reach the property owner, bill them, and they did not pay, so.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
can you please send me a copy of tonight's agenda? I can't find it in my email. Thank
Yes.
you.
Okay, so if everyone's okay with that one, we'll move on to the next one, and I'll take time to send Ms. Blythe the quarterly report, because I can do it as Kirsten is speaking. So if you had an opportunity. Oh, thank you. I'll still send it to you electronically. So this is the first time we're doing the quarterly report, and so I'm just gonna hand it right over to Kirsten and let her take it from here, but you do have the documents.
Okay, Madam Chair,
Yes.
you have two attached documents with the same title, or,
One of them's different. One of them has an A by it so that you can distinguish that there's 2 months. If you look and find it.
It's an I.
I something. I couldn't remember what it did, sorry.
So which one do you want us to look at now? The I one or the non-I one?
I think the I one is 13. Well, they were 14 and 13. To be honest, when I looked at them, both of them said August of 2022, and I think that's because she pulled them in August.
That's the day I ran them.
But I cannot distinguish which one is for which month, so I was going to let her do that. I just knew they were different.
And when I sent, like, the larger one is your expense packet, I don't know how she named them, but it will have the month 4, then you'll go through about 15, 16, 18 pages, then it'll change to 5, and then 6. Because unfortunately, CMI is not very user-friendly, and I cannot put all of these reports into one pretty report.
Kirsten, I just have one request. When you send them to me, can you change them?
The orientation from landscape to from portrait to landscape.
I just email them like, I just scan them like this. I just put them in.
if you put them in the other way,
It'll scan them the other way.
it should
Okay.
give us, because
They're sideways.
I'm sure there's a way you can rotate
Actually, I
it.
tried to do it. I was doing it in the PDF. I've changed the orientation. So, but it's because there's so many of them. I may have missed them. So I went and I had to literally do it one by one. And there's like 40 to 50 pages to each one.
Yeah, better yet, just put a hard copy in our mailboxes. That would be the best bet. And did you determine whether we're the I or the no I?
Probably look and see which one.
I don't know, I didn't.
Which
send
one
them out.
has the pages? Like the one that you wanted to talk about first, how many pages does it have? And then they can gauge it from there.
I has 12 pages.
36 probably.
And the other one has 42.
So look at the 42 ones. Look at the non-I.
Look at the one
Thank
with the
you.
most pages.
Look at non-I.
You can start whenever you're ready. I think these guys are ready.
Oh, typically what we had done in the past is just sent these out to you, and when you had questions, I could answer those questions. But most of the expenses are your typical, your salaries. Your bills, your workers' comp, overs. you wanting this line by line? Okay, the explanation.
I don't know about
Because I would
else,
have
I
to find
don't.
all the backup for every single line out of every single month.
I'm sorry, what?
I didn't know if I was supposed to be telling you this line by line.
No.
Well, we go through it line by line eventually, or we should. That's the way to do it. It doesn't always happen like that.
I mean, it was just my understanding that when you guys got these, that you looked through them, and when you had questions on specific things, by all means.
Yes.
You know, I can give you feedback, and if I don't have it right now, I will certainly send it out first
For
thing the
sure.
next day.
Yes.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Well, do you have anything that significantly changed? Because we talked about last month highlighting those things that significantly changed. And I have a request. So I got them today. If we're going to do it quarterly, let's get them a couple days before so that I can send them out.
The day we spoke, when you were on your vacation, I sent them that day.
Okay, you're right. I apologize. She's right. I'm wrong. She got them. I got them on the 4th. I will send them out ahead of time so that they have more. I was waiting on other items of legislation to attach these forward. What I will do to help this be a better process for us is I will send these documents as soon as she sends them to me so that you all have an opportunity to review. That one was an oversight on my part because of me being on vacation, so I'll do better with that. So when she sends them out, so I know we talked about last month talking about any spaces that were very different from one month to another that was significantly larger, or any major changes, or we talked on the phone about maybe being like if we're ahead of the budget by this amount, meaning that we've spent more than what we spent against what the previous year is, maybe explaining like the subscriptions, we pay this in this month, so this is why we would see those big significant differences. I don't know if you...
Right, and I can share with you after the meeting, I had, for another position I was at, I had a giant spreadsheet that I used for forecasting, and I did ask the directors when I first started if that was something they would like to do, because it outlined, you know, here's your budget, you know, in January, February, March, you're always heavy with salt. So you're gonna spend more. You're not gonna spend much if any, during the summer. So you can budget and forecast for those, and you could benchmark from last year. However, there's not a real report from last year in that format, of course. So that's a little difficult. I mean, I can run it from, a year ago last year.
Okay. I know one thing that, and Mr. Mosey may want to shed some light on this. We had talked about it in the time frame that we met with them. We're actually a little bit ahead in our spending. And part of that is like some things that we have to pay for, like our, I don't know, whatever things that we have to pay for ahead of time. And it's only a once a month time, but it hits us in this time frame. But by the end of the year, it will level out and be what it's supposed to be. And so I'm not sure what those buckets are, but we did talk about, where we are from this year to that year. And I will ask that if we, as you guys look at these, I know you haven't had an opportunity, that you keep in mind that we are moving from a quarterly budget, from a monthly budget to a quarterly budget. So some of this and what the process looks like is a little rough because we're still trying to figure out how to deliver the right information to us so that we can ask the right questions.
Okay, thank you. So just really quickly to follow up with what you were saying. There are, as you mentioned, certain payments that are due at certain times of the year, which might require significant cash outlays. So for example, the lease that we have on the ambulance, there's basically $30,000. So that is due at a particular time. I believe that was due in April. So that would be a major outlay that would be then. We have interest payments on bonds that we currently have out that are due twice a year. So typically, those are due in June and December, and so you would see significant, you would see slight increases in cash outlays for that. This is one of the reasons that we passed the legislation, by the way, for the county to advance us our tax payments. And typically we do it in January so that they will be able to send us an advance on that money early. It gives us cash that we need in order to operate until we get our regular payments. So we get our regular tax payments typically April, and then we get another one in August. And then by that time, by August, we should have received our full tax payments for the year. So yes, you are correct, Madam Chair. Those are just a few examples of some of those payments that might come out. They don't come out evenly, they're just payments that are due at a particular time during the year.
Madam Chair, I have a question. Sure. I'm searching my memory, which sometimes fails me, but I seem to recall that we passed legislation to get you off of CMS.
C-minus.
I'm sorry?
UAN.
I am not, say it again slow.
From CMI,
Oh, is that it?
it's CMI. That's
Okay,
what this
sorry,
is.
too many alphabets.
Right.
So are you on the new software?
No, not yet.
You're not?
We're working on that conversion. We have a temporary end that's gonna help us through that, who's done quite a few conversions himself. So it'll be a lot quicker, I believe, with two people working than just with me.
Do we have any idea of a timeline for that?
Well, last I knew, we were going to do that by the first of the year, so it's a clean
Okay.
cutover.
All right.
That's what we're pushing towards.
And that's part of the I guess, user-friendly method of being able to do reports that are tangible. Because my push to them, and they can tell you, is to give us something that we can tangibly look at to measure from month to month, quarter to quarter, whatever it may be. It is just a clean circumstance for us, for them. And so that's why I said give us a little grace, because I'm advocating for that for us. And I'm also understanding that they have some transitions that they're trying to make in order to make this user-friendly, and to make it a document that is actually usable and that is informative.
So, okay, if I recall correctly, and I know this was a while ago, when Ms. Hall would give us the report, she would give us this document, and then in a PowerPoint, wouldn't she do like a slide for the police department? Are they on budget for the year? Are their expenses on budget? The fire department, are their expenses on budget? Public Works, are their expenses on budget? Blah, 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 blah. And kind of broke it down like that in a more user-friendly way. So we got this document, and then in addition, she presented the document in a PowerPoint, kind of department by department going. So instead of saying like, oh, and today the police department spent this much, and today the police department spent this much, it was more like, is this department on budget? Yes or no? How much do they have left? Are we on track with the budget? So that's kind of what in my mind, whenever I hear like a quarterly report, what I always expect, because that's what Ms. Hall gave us, and I feel like it worked well. It worked
Do you
well
have
for
an example of what?
Can you send it to
I
us?
have
I do.
absolutely
I know
no
exactly.
example.
I think it had a little more information than the way
Yeah.
you described it.
Well, I did say it was a while ago,
I'm looking like, wow, okay.
but it was really beneficial,
Yes,
and I
it
felt
was.
like I understood it.
I know.
I mean, okay, we're talking like a year ago. I don't remember everything.
I'm not.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know if you guys found that beneficial, but I found it more beneficial than just looking at the document.
Right.
I think that is the point that both Kirsten and Madam Chair are making, that we do want to make sure that it's something that can communicate the information to you in a way that will be beneficial, that you can make better forecasting decisions, regarding what direction we're headed.
I have one.
If anybody can send out Ms. Hall's to me, I have very little because I was on council a very short time. So as I'm talking directly with her, it's very difficult for me to pinpoint what should and shouldn't be there. I can look.
Madam Chair, can I
make a suggestion.
Mhm.
Let us look on Ms. Hull's files. and
Okay.
See if we can find one. And then if we can, then Kirsten will be able to just distribute that to everybody.
Okay.
And it doesn't
Fair.
have to be exactly like her.
No.
You can,
Was that what that program was for that she had?
That was part of it,
Questico,
yes.
which we don't have anymore?
I thought it was just in PowerPoint.
No, there may have been a PowerPoint when we were doing the preparation of the budget, that you are correct. But as far as like monthly, that was not something that was part of that.
I have a small, what I think is a small ask, it might not be. Like on this, the very first sheet where it says the description, without having another document sitting here, it says salaries F. I have nothing to go on with that. Is there
That's
any
because
way to
we
make that
no,
one?
That's because we only have so many characters that will
Are
print
you-
out. And if I
Really?
made that longer, you'd probably lose like these 2 columns.
You
But that's the
basically,
great thing
Ms.
about
Zorb, have
CMI.
to look at the appropriation, because that is what you would go.
Well, that's what I would like to be, because like you said, I mean, we just got this. So for me to just look at this is,
Terrible.
yeah. I
it's pretty terrible.
I have nothing to,
Compare it to.
thank you.
No, I agree with you.
Well, that, yes. I definitely understand that it's tough to decipher if I hear you correctly, and
Yeah.
and I understand that, and I think that's exactly what we were talking about, to make it more decipherable.
I have a question for you all. Can you guys see? I tried to turn the document to landscape. Is your versions that I sent to you in PowerPoint in landscape? Because on my save,
The one without the eye is in landscape. The one with the eye is in portrait.
okay. I'll resend it out just for correction's sake in landscape. I know that the document isn't very reader friendly.
You know,
but
you
if
can rotate it.
Yeah, that's what I did with the other one.
But she's saying that she can rotate it and then send it back out to us, so all of us don't have to go in and rotate each
Yeah.
page.
And then if you all have any questions, I guess in the interim, Kirsten
Just email her.
you can email her.
And I could download, I don't have the Adobe Pro, so I don't have the access to turn it, but I'll.
You don't need
feed it
Adobe
in.
Pro to do that. You can just do it on like the regular PowerPoint on Microsoft or on Google or whatever you open your PDF on. Usually it's going to like right click, rotate, or right click orientation or something like that.
If you all don't have any other questions on that, or you're gonna defer your questions to via email, we can move on to the senior levy. I also sent that to you all. It is titled City of NCH Senior Levy. Let me know if anyone doesn't have it. I can resend.
I don't have a problem moving that to council's
Me either.
agenda.
Okay, great. I just want to make sure that we are on the same page. And then does anyone else have any issues with that, or we're just moving it forward? It needs to be passed. We understand what it is.
Oh, yes, okay. Yep.
Okay, thank you. The building renovations. I just want to make sure, Ms. Zorb asked me a question about supporting documents. There aren't any. Were you looking for something specific that I was missing? Because I looked back at your
The way it's written on the agenda, it
Oh,
looked like there was a ordinance or
ordinance.
something.
So the
So that's
reason
why
I
I just-
have
I couldn't
ordinance
find it.
there is because we had some discussion on the table about making sure and going back and checking that there was not an ordinance that we needed to bring down that other portion of the building.
That was the
And-
look for one. Okay.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Nothing. I'm talking out loud. Sorry.
Okay. And that was definitely checked and rechecked this time. It was whatever year we discussed, let me look at my email. I think it was 2016, if I'm Mr. Mosby, was it 2016?
Well, we looked at 2016, 17, and 18.
And there was not any documentation in an ordinance that they could see that supported that. So I just want to keep, as we're bringing up questions, I want to answer those questions in this committee. I wanted to touch on what Ms. Blythe was asking about getting input from other sources, which is the economic developer and the community comprehensive plan. Both of those, what I did hear her say differently than what I had imagined was that the sequence of it, just getting their input before we actually got any funding or anything like that, that's fine. I can move that up on the timeline. As to where it stands right now, we're really not doing anything with it. It's not that it's not we're not doing anything, but it's the finances. We're making sure that those ducks are in a row, so that if and when we have to do financing, the bonds, that we are clear and able to do that. I know that Mr. Mosby is had talked to the previous group about getting an estimate, but I think we put a halt to that just to make sure. Is that true?
Well, we haven't gotten an estimate. We are still going to have an engineer kind of look at the building, just so that we can kind of get
A
so I can
gauge.
get an idea. Right.
Right, and that's to just decide, is it worth salvaging, or does it actually need to be torn down for any use?
I guess my question would be, what, in order to have an engineer look at it, do you have a tentative plan that, like, what do you want done? What is the,
Well, first of all,
what is the
we wanna-
plan?
Okay, so that's a good question. The first thing we want to do is find out to what extent work would need to be done. So I don't know. I'm not up on the roof. I don't know how much damage is there. I can't look inside many of the walls of some of the rooms in there, so I don't know. I have no idea. So I would want someone to come in to look at it, to give us an estimate or an idea of how extensive the damage is. Because quite frankly, the other thing could come back, which is maybe what you were alluding to. Maybe they say that the damage to that side of the building is so significant
Nothing
that it
can be
really
put there.
wouldn't be worth it to try to do any renovations, and then they may make a recommendation to say that side of the building needs to come down. I don't know. So that's what I want to do. I want to be able to get the information before, even making some kind of a recommendation.
So you're just looking for an evaluation of the existing infrastructure?
Correct.
Got it.
It's a good way
In
to look at it.
tandem with making sure that we have our finances in order, that if and when we need to do the bonds, that we're in a healthy position financially to do so. And when I say that transparently, I mean our record keeping, what our existing loans are versus what we're able to take out. We're very, 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 very low on what we can do in terms of our,
Debt to ratio.
yes.
Well, unvoted debt, let me.
Yes.
make that perfect.
Yes.
Unvoted debt, we have less than $1 million, and we are able to go up to 6.5.
Which we
based
don't
on
want
our
to do.
valuation.
But I'm just saying that we're making sure that we are in the best position as a city to take this on, because we don't want any mishaps. And so as that information is gathered, then this is the space that I'll continue to keep it on the agenda and continue to report as we gain and gather more information. So it honestly, in my opinion, it has slowed down, and that's fine, because it needs to be something that is slow and done right and done with everyone's input and, just moving forward for what's going to be best. So if you have any questions about that.
Do you
please
have
let me
any
know.
to-dos for council at this time? Or we're just kind of riding the wave?
We probably do have some to-dos, because I'm going to reach out to the the economic developer, and then kind of reach out from there to see who can do what, or if we want to participate in like coming together and talking in some more informational forums to kind of hone in on some more ideas. So they'll be coming, but as of today, not yet.
Mr. Mosby, when you talked about engineers, is that JMA?
No, that's, JMA is our engineering consultant for our roads.
Okay.
This is an engineer that would be a structural engineer.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, we have executive session on our agenda. I just want to make sure that everyone is prepared to go into executive session, and I think we need a motion to go into executive session.
I'll make
to
a motion, we go into executive session to discuss salaries of elected officials.
And public, what, did you, oh, wait a minute.
I'm only aware of one situation that we need to discuss.
Can you
If
make
there's-
the motion, since you know what it is?
I can make the motion, but I didn't get, did you send me that for the agenda?
No, I saw executive session and kind of adopted it. I didn't know there was anything else to talk about, so I
Okay.
apologize.
No, that's fine. We have two things that we need to talk about on
Okay.
executive session. Can we tentatively put that there, and then if not?
You can
then-
say both. You can
Okay.
say. I just don't know what the other one is.
Sorry, I'm trying to get back to my email so I can say it the way that I need to. Yes.
While you're looking something up, I have a quick question.
Sure.
What is the best way to get a new business item to you after, since executive session is happening first? And
In new business,
something I wanted to bring up, I have to wait until after executive session. Okay.
unfortunately, I'm
Can we
sorry.
just move new business really quickly before executive session?
We can do
I mean,
that.
I don't know what the procedure is.
We can
That's
do
why
that,
I'm
because I know we'll be in executive, we probably will be in executive session for a while. So let's modify the agenda just slightly, and I'm going to move new business up above the executive session. Does anyone have any new business?
I'll go to the microphone. So the new business, I don't know if it is the procedure for proposing anything to this committee, so I'm winging it right now. But the issue has come up. It's a good problem to have, but it's a problem nonetheless. We're starting to get some sponsorship commitments for some community events we have going on, but there is no bucket that currently exists to receive said sponsorships. So that I understand needs to be established. So in order for us to be able to receive them and put it into the appropriate revenue account, such a revenue account does not exist. So the second suggestion was perhaps working through the CIC, but we do not have any kind of formal relationship established between recreation and the CIC. So I have this limbo going on here with funding that I'm getting in to help support these programs, and there's nowhere to put it. So I think that this is budget and finance wheelhouse, so I just wanted to bring that up as new business for this committee to consider as we move forward here.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Go ahead.
So, Ms. Kirsten, would you be able to create legislation or have Mr. Dieters create legislation with a new budget string?
Yes, ma'am.
And if you get that to council, we'll adopt that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's awesome. Problems I have.
Yes.
Okay, anybody have any questions on that? Then I'll make a motion to go into executive session.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Ms. Clear, when you said CIC, what were you referring to when you mentioned the CIC group? Because, let's see.
Thank you. You asked
I'm on CIC.
Okay, so you've asked, okay, that's a good point. So the question remains is some types of donations require 501c3 and some don't, right? There's some that can just come directly to, especially since what I'm doing primarily is for public purpose, benefits the general public. So there's some restrictions and some are not. But in this case, what I've been trying to do for a while is get some traction on some communication with CIC to maybe get like a memorandum of understanding in place, similar to Great Parks of Hamilton County. That is a government unit. They actually have a 501c3 that is their fundraising arm called Great Parks Forever. There is a memorandum of understanding between those two organizations so that the one can fundraise on behalf and support of the other. So we have been trying to go down that path in Recreation Commission, and it's been very difficult to establish communication in a reliable manner and to get any kind of, I would really rather not have to go through a third party. Let's put it that way, if I can, so if we can keep it all in the same, umbrella or family, or, I think administratively that'll be easier for everybody. But there are going to be some cases I know that are just going to come up where they're going to require, it's got to be a 501c3. And we'll cross that bridge when we get there, I think. But for right now, I think the priority is I just need someplace to put this money so that it's accessible, so I can pay for some of these things that we have coming up. So,
Ms. Clear,
yes, ma'am.
I should have asked this. What's the timing that you need, Kirsten, to get this?
Oh, that's a good question.
Is the money here now? Is it coming like in the next couple of weeks or
It
months?
is coming soon. I do have a major sponsor lined up for Fall Festival, and that is scheduled to take place October 1st.
Okay.
So I don't know if there's time to do the whole 3 public readings, but I just don't know what can be done with this funding, that's coming in the interim. I know there's a procedure that has to take place in order to establish new accounts and all of that. I don't want to circumvent that in any way, but we do have this funding coming in and I need somewhere to put it.
Okay, so that's
So.
good perspective for us.
Okay.
Could it be, could we just basically say right now, after the piece of legislation is done, to take it to council?
That's what Ms. Zorb was saying, I think, right?
Oh, I'm sorry, okay, my bad.
And she put Kirsten on getting with Dieters to do that,
Perfect.
right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I would like to make a motion to enter into executive session to discuss the resignation of an unclassified employee. And the second is to add revenue and an expense appropriation to the police budget.
And to discuss the salaries of elected officials.
Yes, and if we have time to discuss the salaries of elected officials, please.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Are we supposed to stay in here?
No, we move.
Okay. I just want to make sure that We are resuming our budget and finance meeting. It is 8:54.
Oh, huh.
Only thing left on the agenda is old business.
Keep rubbing it
We
in.
have
yeah.
the one, we'll put that on old business. Mr. Mosby has a one.
For new
So-
business?
I mean, technically it would be new business.
Okay.
But I know.
No, you're fine. Sorry, I just want to get for the minutes.
So many of you have asked, and of course, well, sorry, not of course, but we did complete the impound lot. So we are ready to go. However, there are a couple of things that have to be done. Number one, we need a revenue line in the budget so that we will be able to receive money. But even before we're able to do that, the police department needs an expense line so that we will be able to pay out the tow trucks who come in, who will start to tow the cars into the tow lot. So we did talk to Chief about that, and so I needed to make sure that we brought that to council's attention so that we can hopefully have such an appropriation passed at the next council.
So
That
that
would be
looks
our
like,
hope.
Mr. Dieter's formulating
Correct.
legislation.
Right.
Okay.
Well, it would actually, we would work through Kirsten, she would get it through with CMI, but yes, the legislation portion of it, yeah.
Can you restate so I got the one thing just for the minutes. We need an expense line. Expense line needs to be added to pay out the tow trucks. And then what was the second thing
So
that needs to be
the
done?
second one is the revenue line that we need in order to receive monies from people who are coming to pay their fines for the impound,
Okay.
to get the cars
Yep.
out of the impound.
Mr. Mosby.
Thank you.
Yes.
People actually have to pay for the tow though to get their car back, right?
Correct.
So we wouldn't actually be paying for the tow, they would be
We
reimbursing
would,
us?
yes, we would be reimbursed, that's correct.
Okay.
Right. We would have to pay it out initially, but we would be getting reimbursed with their fines.
Okay.
So it's like we're spending money first, so like we have to pay the, tow truck people first, and then the people have to pay us next. The resources, like, I don't know if you know anything about that industry. I personally used to have a tow business with my ex-husband, and it takes 60 to 90 days sometimes before those funds come back to you, even with cities, especially with cities. So that's the reason why we have to have some startup money, if you will. The best way that I can think to explain it is had some startup money first, and then we'll start to see those monies come back to us. But we have to be able to use some money to get the things up and going,
Right, you got to spend money to make money.
to get it back, yes.
Right, but the phrase is what I meant.
Because the requirement for us to pay is going to be more immediate than when we actually get the resources back.
The
So-
puzzled look on my face is I feel like I have seen a impound line item
Oh,
in
you
the
did.
budget already.
That is correct, Ms. Zor. But that was to construct it. So the monies that were in the expense item, you are correct, that money was used in order to build so we paid for the fencing, the excavation, and all that. We didn't have a line item for the operation.
Okay.
Mr. Mosby, I have a question. Who will be, what will the hours be for the impound lot, and also who will be, running that?
Well, it is a police department item.
Okay.
So ultimately, the police, it will be under the police officer's jurisdiction.
So they'll set the hours, whatever they
Right, I
are
mean, if
convenient for them.
typically, you're not gonna have cars being towed at 2 in the morning, but,
Sometimes you might.
yeah, I mean, it is
Yeah.
possible that might happen once
Okay.
or twice. But for the most part, they're gonna be coming in during the day. These will be cars that, they were on the street too long, they're being towed. If they were stopped, and for some reason, they found that there was a warrant or something like that, then it could be towed that way as well.
And then just one other question that popped in my mind. Will there be, perimeter,
Yes.
cameras there, in,
have
out,
lights, and
all
yes,
around
we-
the perimeter?
Right, we already have the lights, and we are actually working on the cameras.
Will we have any, dogs in the lot? Dogs,
Junkyard dog.
our dogs,
Dogs?
dogs.
Canine dogs.
DOGS.
Okay, our canine is part of the police force. but-
Oh, okay.
I mean,
Yeah,
we're
but
not
I was
I
just
feel like an
curious.
impact-
No, he
Dog
can't,
dogs.
he can't stand guard.
I'm,
Kidding.
That was
I'm
a
sorry,
serious
I-
question.
Oh.
I was not being
Why would
serious.
a dog-
I
Junkyard dog.
apologize.
Have you never heard that phrase?
That was,
He's an
that was a
indoor
serious
dog.
question.
No, I
wasn't
know it
full-
was, but we're not buying dogs for the.
I bring Oreo up
It wasn't a
there.
joke. It wasn't a joke.
I got
That
a
was-
Shih Tzu who's the killer.
I thought you were kidding.
No,
I actually,
we have
I was kidding.
dogs.
I was.
I wasn't. I wasn't. I was just a question that
I've
came,
never
came to mind.
I've never seen an impound lot without dogs though.
Really?
No, I haven't, but I haven't been to many.
I've never.
Well, I will say that we have not put anything in the budget to purchase any additional.
We don't need
animals.
any dogs. We got cameras. rescue. Okay, old business.
Thank you, Mr. Mosby. Thank you.
If you guys are clear on that, let's do old business. Then we can close out of here. I just have one. It's old business in retrospect of the fact that we talked about it earlier in this conversation. But I'm gonna send out the document in landscape to them. I just fixed it. And then if you in September can have a little bit more close to like a report, like I want to make sure that by the next quarterly report that we are where we should be, since we didn't kind of have that today. It doesn't have to be extensive, but that will give you all a chance to look through, and then her an opportunity to kind of report just briefly.
Well, if I may, I mean, Ms. Anderson had indicated, so we'll go back and kind of look at that report that Ms. Hall had created, and I'm going to try to see if we can take that and see how those numbers can be incorporated and transferred out of CMI and into that. We understand that
That's
CMI is extremely cumbersome. I know that had been how the report had been given to everyone for years. We are trying to change some of that. I do think that UAN, once we do make that transition, it will be different. But until then, we're trying to make something that will be more easily decipherable for council.
And I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm gonna send you guys that second document right now. And then if that is the case and everything is settled, we are going to adjourn this meeting at 9:02. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.